The Energy Minister says she expects petrol prices to come down as quickly as they went up after Saudi Arabia revealed that damage to its production facilities isn't as bad as first thought. As you heard there, BP and Z Energy increased prices for 91 octane by about 6 cents a litre. As at 5 o'clock tonight, Z and BP's prices hadn't moved downwards. Gull hasn't raised its prices since the drone attacks and says the reaction of the other companies is over the top. I asked the Minister, Megan Woods, whether she thought the companies that raised prices so quickly were fleecing motorists.
Well, what we've seen is some of New Zealand petrol companies that have put up their petrol prices immediately in response to what's happening in Saudi Arabia. We've had other petrol companies that haven't. But, of course, the other news that has happened in the last few hours, of course, the Saudis have announced that they're going to get their production facilities restored earlier than some analysts were expecting. So what we'll be looking for now, I guess, is for those petrol companies that put their prices up very quickly to see if they bring them down as quickly now. We're seeing international oil prices coming down.
Yeah, that's the thing. When Radio New Zealand went out yesterday in the CBD in Wellington, we found a couple of petrol stations that were barely 2 kilometres apart, and one was charging $2.41 a litre for 91 compared to the other one, which was $2.08. How can they justify such a wide gap?
Well, of course, there's a very separate process than what we've seen happen over the last few days in terms of Saudi Arabia, and that's the Commerce Commission's investigation into retail fuel pricing, and is looking at exactly those kind of questions. What are the things that are driving our retail prices? The questions that we've had over the last few days in terms of the response to what we've seen happening in Saudi Arabia has been really whether we've seen the prices tracking up in a way we'd expect when we had tensions in this part of the world. The general rule of thumb is that you'd expect a cent at the pump for every dollar on a barrel of oil, and that's roughly what we saw, but not all petrol companies chose to do that immediately.
So what does
some
that
decided
tell
to
you?
wait and see.
Yeah, so what does that tell you? Because two of them moved with 6 cent increases, and they moved really quickly, yet one of the companies said, nah, let's wait until the end of the week and see how this plays out. So what does that tell us?
Well, I think that tells us that different companies are making different commercial decisions, and I guess motorists will choose based on that. But as I said, what I think we should all watch very carefully now, that we've seen international oil prices come down today, with the Saudis announcing that they'll have 70% of the production at the facility up and running in the next couple of days. We've seen oil prices ease. We'll be looking to see that reflected just as quickly in petrol prices at the pump, I imagine.
So when the market closed last night, the cost of crude oil had already dropped back down, yet when we get up this morning, none of the prices seem to have moved. What do you make of that?
And that's what I'm saying. We'll be watching very closely for what speed, as we've talked about earlier in this interview. Not all companies made that decision, and I guess motorists will make decisions about where they fill up their cars.
Are they moving fast enough, though, in your view?
Look, what we do know is that there is volatility in the commodity market for crude oil. It does move around, that we have seen the movements that have been in line with what analysts would predict, as I said, which is about a cent on a dollar increase for a barrel of oil. We saw about a $6 rise in a barrel of oil, and we saw 6 cents at the pump. It's really, I guess, people will make choices about where they can get the best price for their petrol. That some companies decided that they were going to wait a couple of days to see how the international situation played out, because there were always question marks over how quickly the Saudi facility would be restored.
Where do you fill up, Minister?
I actually drive an electric car, so I don't fill up, but I certainly represent an electorate full of people that do fill up and get constant feedback from my constituents on this.
What do you think is a reasonable time frame for the prices to go back down again, tail off?
Well, I think what we saw was the prices increase in parallel with the international prices rising. So I guess if you were going to measure speed based on the speed in which things went up, you'd want to look at the speed for which things come down.
To be clear, Minister, do you think the prices should have already gone down at the pump now?
Oh, look, I think they are coming down. I would want to see that passed on to motorists, yes.
Do you think that the local companies have lowered the prices quick enough now that things have stabilised?
Well, but my point, Lisa, was that some never put them up. So I think it's very hard to generalise in that way.
Okay, let's be specific then. BP and Z Energy. BP and Z Energy.
I will be looking over the coming day to see how those prices come down. But that might be an interview that you want to do to talk to them about what they're going to do with their prices, because that's ultimately their responsibility, and that consumers will make decisions. I imagine motorists pull in to fill up where they're getting the best price.
So should we talk to BP and Z Energy, you reckon, about why their prices aren't going down?
What I'm saying in terms of the timings around that they'll have the answers around that.